Excellent. We'll now move on to give a brief intro to our other special roles that we have this meeting. Unlike a regular club meeting, so the stuff we do is completely off the wall. And the idea of looking for ways to find your funny. And sometimes you don't have to look very hard to find it. Sometimes it's so hard to find that you have to ask your mother, and then she'll find it within 5 seconds. So leading that is our humor detector. And our humor detector today is going to be, there it is, Francine Julian. So just a heads up, Francine will be listening to us and reporting on any uses of humor and any missed opportunities for humor. We have our Wizard of Oz, who I guess may have also been hanging out with Harry Potter today. And the Wizard of Oz is going to be Gloria Darling, and she'll be also reporting at the end of the meeting. Concluding that introduction of the roles, we will now move on to our educational headliner, which is something that most clubs do not have, but we will do regularly in addition to having guest speakers. So call upon our educational headliner tonight has been in Toastmasters for 23 years. That was so long ago. It was, I'm sure, before some of us might have been born, but who knows what life was like 23 years ago. And on the topic of tall tales, I'm sure I could think of something that happened 23 years ago that doesn't make you feel too old. The speaker tonight is a distinguished Toastmaster, a two times World Championship of Public Speaking finalist, taking in third in 2006. And let's face it, nobody here tonight cares. What you might care about are his 2 district titles and tall tales, since that's what he's here to talk about tonight. Tall Tales is a true unicorn. Of course, we know unicorns are real, but Rich says you have to approach it differently from any other speech contest you've competed in. All right, Rich, explain yourself. Let's give Rich a rousing Find You Funny welcome.
Thank you very much. There, I just started my speech with a thank you. Look at that. But hey, that's what Mr. Yellow does, right, Tom? We say thank you. I've worn this shirt in Mr. Yellow's honor tonight. Because after all, he's a tall tale. You follow Mr. Yellow all over the world, he's got to be doing something right. Okay, why is a tall tale a unicorn? Because the judges have no idea what a good tall tale speech is. Of course, that's nothing new, right? If you've ever been in a contest, they have no idea what any of the contests are about in terms of what a good speech is. Because when you've lost, you know they're wrong. But then in the Tall Tales contest, it fits equally for both judges and contestants. Speakers in the Tall Tales contest usually don't know what a tall tale is either. If you've ever watched one, you'll hear speeches that are so different from each other that you're wondering if they're all following the same criteria, if they all understand what a tall tale is. So that's what I want to help you with tonight, but I'm not sure if I can truly clear it up, because a tall tale is not one single type of tale. I've got the Toastmasters International Convention background tonight because it says exactly what we do when we do tall tales. We are all storytellers, and that is at the heart what a tall tale is. It's a story. That's different from other speeches that may have stories in them, but don't typically tend to be a full story from start to end. Possibly you would do that in a humorous speech. Possibly you would do that in the international speech, but it's very unlikely that you're going to see that in those contests. Usually there's several different stories, people jump around. A tall tale, when we think about it, when we were kids, Paul Bunyan with the giant axe and the giant blue ox changing the course of mighty rivers? Tall tale. Davy Crockett, Johnny Appleseed, spreading apple tree seeds all over the country. Kind of true, but not true to the extent of the tale we hear about Johnny Appleseed. And you think John Henry versus the mighty steam drill as they raced to go through the mountain. And John Henry, of course, proved that he was faster. Although I think he died at the end, which, I don't know if you really want to prove you're faster at the cost of your life. But it's a tall tale, perhaps based on something that almost happened. But the point is, it's a story. And it involves exaggeration. It can involve other props. It involves some sort of conflict. Even if you just go to the big fish story. I had to battle that fish for 5.5 hours, and I finally caught it. You never know what that tall tale is going to entail. But those are old tall tales. What do we have today? Think about this. Is Superman a tall tale? Basically, alien superpowers? He's been a tall tale since 1938. Even more so, Batman. He doesn't have superpowers, but he's an ideation. He's what we wish we could be, and we could because he has no powers. He just has money. He actually said that in Justice League. Flash asked him what a superpower was. He said, I'm rich. That's his superpower. And lest you think I'm being sexist, we also have Wonder Woman, who is also an ideation. Wouldn't it be great if you could live on an island, and then if you wanted to, go off the island and become a superheroine and change lives? There you go. Tall tales of today. And if you're an Avengers fan, they're tall tales too. I just don't have any of their figures. I'm a DC guy. So how does this factor in to the contest? Let's take a look, which most contestants or judges never do, at the judging sheet. I can find my button for sharing the screen. Oh yeah, it's lit up in green, so that only makes it easier to find, right? Okay, this is the humorous speech contest ballot. Give me a nod if you could see it.
We can see it, Rich.
Fantastic. Well, that's the thing, is people always think that Tall Tales is just a shorter humorous speech contest speech. And we hear a lot of those in the Tall Tales contest, and a lot of them win because they're good speeches. But let's take a look. In the humorous speech contest, content is 55% of the ballot. Speech development, effectiveness, speech value, audience response. Okay, then you've got 30% physical, voice, and manner, and 15% manner, appropriateness, correctness. Does that even add up? Yeah, that does add up. That's great. But then you go over to Tall Tales, where content is only 30%, which means you don't have to give a tremendously valuable speech. I mean, how valuable really is Superman as a story, or even John Henry? Yeah, there's a bit of a moral to it, but it's not fully content. It's mostly just fun, mostly just talking about the conflict and the characters. So you don't need all the content. What you do need is delivery. And it's funny because a lot of people complain about the international speech contest being all about delivery. Well, if they just stand on a chair, or they go up really close to the camera, or they do various things, they're going to win because they're delivering so well. Except delivery isn't that big a part of the overall international speech ballot. It is here in Tall Tales. Speech techniques, exaggeration, irony, puns. You can use puns. It's a dad's dream. Surprise twists, humor, slapstick. I'm not sure what etc. means. You think about humor. Not all tall tales need to be humorous. Not all tall tales are humorous. It's there, and a lot of people really think your tall tale has to be humorous in order to be effective, in order to win. Think about that. Physical, your appearance, your body language. Did you dress the part? That could help you if your speech lends itself to dressing the part. Do you have props? Is it appropriate to the speech you're giving? How are you using your voice? Are you using accents at all? Are you talking about being an Englishman stuck in the middle of Florida? Wouldn't you want to be an Englishman meeting a Florida man? You never know. Caution with accents. My daughter gave me this one. You cannot use an accent of somebody who is a different race than you. So I can use an English accent or an Australian accent, but if I use an Indian accent or a Japanese accent or Chinese accent, I'm much more likely to be called out for being racist, even if I'm not. I'm doing something that is racist. So think about that when you're giving any speech of any kind. If you're using accents, you have to stick to your own. Like you can't make fun of other people's kids, but you can make fun of your kids. Think about that. And then appropriateness, which I kind of just spoke to in one way, but is your tall tale appropriate to the audience? Yeah, and I've seen some speeches win that aren't necessarily all that appropriate, including one about somebody's dating and sex life. But we'll let that go. So you can see the difference between the humorous contest and the tall tales contest. So I won twice. I enjoyed winning. Yes, I love to win. If you haven't heard, my tagline is win anyway. The first year that I won, I used a not funny speech. It was about a guy who was afraid to go outside, ordered everything online, including a pair of shoes, which he used to walk around the block every day at 3 o'clock because he had to get outside at least once. But these new pair of shoes he bought on the internet were magical. And when he happened to run across somebody being mugged, the shoes turned him into a superhero, and he was able to stop the mugging. And he started using the shoes every time he went out to stop crime for at least that brief time he was out walking. And at the end, across the street, there was a little girl who would always say hi to him out the window, and he would always just kind of look down because, of course, he was afraid of everything until a fire hit that girl's apartment building, and he rushed out up the stairs and jumped out the window with the little girl into the arms of the firemen below. That's not really a funny speech. There are a couple of funny things. I used some funny word choices with the internet site and the types of things he would order. It was a little bit of an intriguing, funny situation, although I found out in the interview section that it wasn't as funny as I thought because one of the other contestants actually did have agoraphobia and wouldn't go outside. So I was essentially making fun of one of the other contestants, completely unintentionally. He was fine with it, thank goodness. The end of the story, though, was a moral because, of course, he was so concerned about that little girl that he ran out of his apartment without his shoes. So his heroic action was a result of the soul of the man, not the soul of the shoes. People loved it. Except the person who took second, who's a good friend of mine, who came up to me and said, "I don't know why you won. That wasn't even funny." What do you mean it wasn't funny? Well, it didn't need to be funny. So 2 years later, I did a funny tall tale about a man who was afraid to public speak, but was also a criminal, ended up in a car accident. Hopefully, Marjane will not end up in a similar one where he ran into a giant mess caused by a Ben & Jerry's truck hitting a banana truck, creating the world's largest banana split, and then waking up dead, being given a choice to either get in an elevator and go up if he was a good person or down if he was bad, and he knew where he would go. But he was also given the choice to go back and live his life if he would join a Toastmasters club. But since he was deathly afraid of public speaking, he took the risk and went on the elevator, which of course plummeted downward and then opened up with smoke pouring in until he saw at the back of the room, Brimstone Toastmasters, club number 666. Welcome. You've arrived just in time for table topics. So that one was a funny one all throughout. I made sure it was the funniest speech I'd ever given. And in fact, I know it was funny because it was part of a humorous district winning speech I'd given 15 years before. So I knew it was funny. And I went up to the gal and I said, hey, was I funny this time? But the point is, it doesn't have to be funny. It can be funny. Find a story or create a story, expand on the story, exaggerate it, make it bigger than life. Maybe your pencil suddenly turns magic. Maybe your computer suddenly sucks you into a different reality. Maybe that tiny fish that you caught in your fish story talks to you and gives you the winning lottery numbers. Who knows what you can come up with? The key is you want a story, you want it to be original, you want it to have some twists. If you throw in some humor, that's great, but have fun with it. And then realize at the end of the day, you're still not totally sure if you really told a tall tale the way you're supposed to. But guess what? The judges don't either. Just go win anyway. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rich, for telling us about tall tales. Tall tales is something that I have not seen in District 84, but maybe it's something that we can introduce maybe sometime in this millennium. And of course, Mr. Yellow, if you have not met Mr. Yellow, he wants to meet you because as Richard, he's traveled all over the world. He's taken part in all sorts of various things. And of course, he's traveled with me to New York. And of course, he's a charter member of Yellow Smiles Toastmasters. And with that, we will now move on to a Q&A for our educational headliner. Does anyone have any questions for Rich?
Oh, heck, I didn't know I had to answer questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So would you consider a shaggy dog to be a type of tall tale, or would you consider them both their own kind of separate thing?
Well, it depends on what that shaggy dog does. The shaggy dog is just a real thing. We have shaggy dogs. What does your shaggy dog do? That's what makes it a tall tale.
Yeah, I have a question. Shouldn't how far do you go? Should you keep it in touch with your? Should you keep it in touch with the ground, or how far should you go? I don't know, if, as far as the moon, or
well, I think you can do either.
I'm sorry.
I think you can do either. The first one, the first story I told was closer to the ground. I mean, the superpowers weren't. He couldn't fly. He still had to run up the stairs and save the girl and jump out the window and be saved by firemen. So it was relatively grounded in reality and was more a wish fulfillment kind of story. But then the other story about a guy dying and being given the choice to come back to life or go to heck, well, that was to the stars. So it depends on the story you want to tell and how comfortable you are telling those types of stories. Does that answer your question?
I guess there's no appropriate, keep it on the ground, maybe. I mean, it's still open. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, keeping it on the ground, keeping it too close to the ground tends to not make it a tall tale. It just, now it could be a funny reality story, could be something that is really entertaining, but does it fall under tall tale? Because the closer to the ground it is, in my eyes, that means the more parts of it are actually true, which runs against the overall tall tale spirit, which is to exaggerate and make it not true.
Okay, so I think if it's closer to the ground, it could be more of a humorous type story, while it farther away, go for the sky, for the moon, that would be more a tall tale.
Yeah, I think you'd have better luck in a tall tale contest going for the sky.
Okay.
And our time just about wraps up there. Rich, do you have a closing statement? I know when you and I discussed tall tales, exactly what Kennedy ran into. Yeah, you got to exaggerate, but for tall tales and Toastmasters, you got to exaggerate it to like the 19th power to be the tall tale.
Yeah, absolutely. Sort of. That's the thing, is that you don't really know. So write a story that you enjoy, that you think other people will enjoy. Give it, test it out, and don't worry so much about the trophy. If you have a funny speech, if you have a tall tale speech that entertains, the trophies will come. And if they don't, well, you've still given the audience something to be entertained by. And you've still challenged yourself by giving a speech that you don't typically give in your Toastmasters Club or everyday life.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, no banana splits so far today.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I don't know. Is it? I love banana splits.